The porch of the Hamptons estate loomed over me, looking expensive and judgmental. I had flown 5,000 miles on a red-eye from London for my parents' 30th anniversary vow renewal, and my eyes burned with exhaustion. I reached for the handle, but the door swung open before I could touch it. My mother blocked the entrance. There was no hug, no smile. She just shoved a clipboard into my chest. "You look terrible," she hissed, glancing at my travel clothes like they were contaminated evidence. "Go around to the service entrance. The guests shouldn't see you looking like that." She pointed toward the side of the house. "And fix the caterers. They're threatening to leave if they don't get a credit card on file immediately." Inside, through the open door, I saw my father sitting in his leather armchair, nursing a scotch. He didn't even look up. "You look too tired to be useful, Ashley," he muttered. That was the welcome. No hello, no thank you. Just a demand for payment and a servant's entrance. Before I tell you what I did next, drop a comment. If your family treated you like an ATM instead of a daughter, would you pay the bill just to keep the peace? Yes or no? Let me know where you're listening from. The gravel of the service path crunched under my boots, sounding like bones breaking. My face remained perfectly still, a mask of professional detachment. Tears are a liability I liquidated years ago. I pushed open the heavy kitchen door and stepped into chaos. Steam rose from pots, servers shouted orders, and the event planner was screaming into her phone. My mother rushed in a moment later, her heels clicking aggressively on the tile. "Fix this, Ashley," she snapped, waving a hand at the head caterer who was packing up his equipment. "The guests are arriving in 20 minutes. Use your corporate card if you have to." My brother, Joshua, leaned against the granite island, already holding a beer. He smirked, looking me up and down. "Don't look at me, Ash. I am the talent. You are the wallet." He laughed, a wet, sloppy sound. In the past, I would have pulled out my card. I would have smoothed it over. I would have bought their love for another 24 hours. But tonight, the air in the kitchen felt different. It smelled like expensive hors d'oeuvres and cheap desperation. I looked at my mother, panting with panic. I looked at my brother, smug in his uselessness, and I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a shark gives before it drags you under. Without a word, I walked past them to the smart home hub mounted on the wall. It controlled everything: the lights, the locks, the high-end sound system, the security cameras. I pulled out my phone and opened the Family Trust banking app. My thumb hovered over the screen. There was no trembling. I accessed the administration settings. Password reset, confirm. Biometric lock enabled. Then I opened the home security app. Admin access. Revoke all other users. Confirm. One by one, I watched the little green icons next to their names turn gray. I effectively locked them out of the digital nervous system of the house they were pretending to own. Finally, I turned to the head caterer. He looked at me, credit card machine in hand, waiting for me to save the day. I looked him dead in the eye. "I am not paying," I said, my voice calm and level. "And neither are they." The room went silent. My mother's face went pale. "What did you say?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I just tapped my phone one last time. The Wi-Fi router rebooted. The music in the living room cut out abruptly, leaving only the sound of my father shouting my name from the other room. The retaliation had begun. The room they assigned me was a glorified storage closet on the second floor, filled with stacked banquet chairs and a deflated air mattress thrown on the floor. The irony wasn't lost on me. Downstairs, they were celebrating 30 years of marriage in a rented mansion. Upstairs, the person funding their lifestyle was sleeping next to the vacuum cleaner. I sat on the edge of the mattress and opened my laptop. The blue light of the screen was the only clean, honest thing in the house. Rather than texting a friend to vent, I opened a spreadsheet file named Miller Family Expenses. For the last 18 months, I had been tracking every single cent I sent them. Not because I planned to ask for it back, but because I was a lawyer, and documentation is my love language. I scrolled to the bottom. The total number stared back at me in bold, black font. $72,000. It wasn't just a number. It was a down payment on a house I didn't own. It was my retirement fund. It was my freedom, siphoned off in increments of Venmo requests and emergency wires. I ran my finger over the screen. There was the $1,500 a month for my father's networking club fees. He claimed it was essential for his business connections, but I knew it was just a place where he drank scotch and pretended he wasn't irrelevant. There was the $2,000 for my mother's image consulting, which was apparently a fancy term for buying designer clothes she couldn't fit into. And then, the biggest bleeder of all, Joshua. $4,000 here, $3,000 there, labeled tech startup loan or crypto investment. I had wired him that money because he swore he was on the verge of a breakthrough. Looking at it now, I realized I hadn't been investing in a business. I had been subsidizing a delusion. For years, people had asked me why I did it. Why did a smart corporate attorney let her family bleed her dry? Looking at that spreadsheet, I finally understood. I was a victim of the gambler's fallacy. You see, I was like a desperate player sitting at a slot machine. The machine was my family. Every check I wrote, every bill I paid was just another coin I dropped into the slot. I kept telling myself that if I just put in one more coin, if I just paid for one more crisis, the jackpot would finally drop. I thought if I paid enough, the 3 cherries would line up, and out would pop the father who was proud of me, the mother who nurtured me, the brother who respected me. I sat there in the dark, listening to the muffled bass of the music downstairs, and realized the truth. The machine wasn't broken. It was rigged. It was designed to take my coins and never, ever pay out. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a venture capitalist for a failing business called the Miller Family Image. And as of tonight, I was closing the round of funding. I didn't feel sad. I felt the cold, hard relief of someone who finally walks away from the casino. I closed the laptop. The spreadsheet was no longer a record of my generosity. It was evidence. The party downstairs was imploding. I could hear it through the floorboards. The sudden drop in volume, the awkward murmurs of guests leaving early, the frantic clinking of silverware trying to cover the silence. I stayed in my storage room, working. About an hour later, the door flew open. My father stood there, his face a mottled red that matched his silk tie. He didn't knock. He never knocked. He marched in, kicking the air mattress with his dress shoe. "You selfish, arrogance-filled brat," he shouted. His voice was slurred. "Do you have any idea what you have done? You embarrassed us, in front of the senator, in front of the partners." I didn't stand up. I stayed seated on the floor, my back against the wall, looking up at him. "I didn't embarrass you, Dad," I said, my voice flat. "Your lack of funds embarrassed you. I just refused to hide it anymore." He sputtered, pointing a shaking finger at me. "We raised you. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us? By sabotaging your mother's big night because you are jealous?" That was their favorite narrative, that I was the bitter, lonely career woman jealous of their perfect family unit. He stormed out before I could answer, slamming the door so hard the stacked chairs rattled. A minute later, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Facebook. My mother. She had posted a photo of herself crying in the bathroom, mascara running down her cheeks. The caption read, "Heartbroken. 30 years of marriage celebrated in ruins because some children forget where they came from. You sacrifice your whole life for them, and they repay you with cruelty. Pray for us." Below it, the comments were already rolling in from her friends. "So ungrateful. Kids these days have no loyalty. Stay strong, Melissa." Then came the text from Joshua to the family group chat. "Hope you are happy, Ash. Dad's chest hurts. If he has a heart attack tonight, it is on you." I looked at the message, and for a second, the old guilt tried to flare up. The good daughter programming tried to kick in. But then I remembered the spreadsheet. I remembered the slot machine. And I realized something about my brother. I call it the golden child tax. In every dysfunctional family, there is an exchange rate. My success was treated as public property, something I owed them because I was lucky. But Joshua's failures, those were treated as bad luck. When he crashed his car, it was an accident. When he lost his job, it was the economy. When he needed money, it was a tragedy. He was tax exempt. I was in the highest bracket. I looked at his text again. Silence is a legal strategy. Anything I said would just be admissible evidence in their court of victimhood. I was done being the villain in their story. It was time to become the plaintiff in mine. The Hamptons faded into the darkness of the rearview mirror as my Uber Black sped toward Manhattan. It cost $400, and it was the best money I ever spent. The city skyline greeted me not with judgment, but with the honest, brutal concrete of reality. I went straight to my office. It was 3 a.m. The glass and steel tower was silent, a fortress of solitude that felt more like home than that villa ever did. I didn't go to sleep. I sent an email to Sarah. Sarah was a forensic accountant at my firm, a woman who could find a missing nickel in a billion-dollar merger. She was ruthless, efficient, and she hated bullies. The subject line of my email was simple: personal audit, high priority, hostile takeover. When Sarah walked into my office a few hours later, she didn't ask if I was okay. She saw the spreadsheet on my screen and the look in my eyes. She just set down her coffee and cracked her knuckles. "Who are we destroying?" she asked. "My parents," I said. "Treat their finances like a shell company engaging in fraud. Find everything." For the next 48 hours, we worked. We didn't treat this like a family dispute. We treated it like litigation. We pulled credit reports. We traced wire transfers. We cross-referenced tax filings. It was surgical. Sarah found the cracks immediately. The $1,500 a month for the networking club? It wasn't a club. The payments were going to a debt consolidation firm in New Jersey to pay off credit cards I didn't even know existed. My father wasn't networking. He was drowning in consumer debt and using my money to bail out the water. Then we looked at Joshua, the tech startup loans. Sarah traced the routing numbers. They didn't go to a business account. They went to an offshore holding company based in Malta. A quick search revealed the company was a front for an online sports betting platform. My brother wasn't building an app. He was gambling away my salary on football games. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. It wasn't hot or explosive. It was heavy and solid. I drafted a document. It wasn't a letter. It was a notice of dissolution of financial support and demand for repayment. I attached the full audit. I cited the dates, the lies, and the fraudulent pretenses under which they had solicited the funds. I wasn't just cutting them off. I was building a case. But I didn't know yet that the biggest crime wasn't on the spreadsheet. It was waiting for us in the property records. It was 2 a.m. on Tuesday when my office phone rang. It was Sarah. She was down the hall in her own office, but she called me because she didn't want to shout the news. Her voice was tight. "Ashley," she said, "you need to come see this, now." I walked down the hallway. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Sarah was standing at her standing desk, staring at 2 monitors. On the left screen was the lease agreement for the Hamptons villa my parents were staying in. Or at least, what I thought was a lease agreement. On the right screen was a property deed. "Look at the purchase date," Sarah said, pointing a manicured nail at the screen. I leaned in. The date was 6 months ago. "They didn't rent the villa for the weekend, Ashley," Sarah said quietly. "They bought it." I frowned. "That's impossible. Their credit is shot. They couldn't qualify for a library card, let alone a $4 million estate." "They didn't qualify," Sarah said. "You did." She clicked a button, and the document scrolled down to the signature page. My stomach dropped. There, in black ink, was my name, Ashley Miller. It was my signature. Or rather, it was a very good copy of my signature. "They formed a shell company," Sarah explained, her voice turning clinical. "They used your social security number, your credit history, and a forged power of attorney to secure the mortgage. You are the guarantor. You are on the hook for the entire $4 million. I stared at the screen, the room spinning slightly. They had stolen my identity. They hadn't just used me for cash. They had leveraged my entire financial future to play house. "And here is the kill shot," Sarah added. She pulled up a red-flagged notice from the bank. They haven't made a mortgage payment in 4 months. The bank sent the foreclosure warnings to an email address linked to your brother's phone. They hid the mail. They blocked the calls. They are squatting in a house that is days away from being repossessed, and they threw a party in it on your dime. The last thread of connection snapped. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't just toxic family dynamics. This was a felony. They were criminals, and I was done being the victim. "Get the bank on the phone," I said. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm not going to sue them," I said, turning back toward the door. "I'm going to own them." 3 days later, I drove back to the Hamptons. The gravel driveway was quiet. The party decorations were gone, but the stench of failure still hung over the house. I walked up to the front door. I didn't knock. I used my key, the one the bank had messengered to me that morning. I walked into the living room. My father was on the sofa, watching golf. My mother was flipping through a magazine. Joshua was asleep in a chair. When they saw me, my father jumped up, his face turning that familiar shade of angry red. "You have some nerve coming back here," he shouted. "After what you did? We are not speaking to you until you apologize and fix the accounts." I didn't shout back. I didn't blink. I walked over to the coffee table and dropped a single thick document onto the glass surface. It made a heavy thud that woke Joshua up. "It's not an apology," I said softly. My father looked at the paper. He squinted. "What is this? A lawsuit? You are suing your own parents?" "No," I said. I stepped back, crossing my arms. "It's a deed in lieu of foreclosure." My mother froze. "What?" "I know about the forgery," I said. "I know you used my name to buy this house. I know you haven't paid the mortgage in 4 months. The bank was about to seize it today." My father's bluster vanished. He looked like a deflated balloon. "We were going to catch up," he stammered. I didn't let him finish. "I spoke to the bank," I said. "Since my name was fraudulently attached to the loan anyway, and since I am the only one with the funds to cover it, I made a deal. I paid off the arrears. I bought the debt. I assumed the title. I looked around the room, taking in the high ceilings, the ocean view, the life they had stolen from me. "This isn't your house anymore," I said. "It's mine. Legally. Completely. And I am evicting you." My mother gasped, clutching her chest. "Ashley, you can't do this. We are your family. You can't kick your mother out on the street." I looked her in the eye. The woman who sent me to the service entrance. The woman who posted about me on Facebook. "I'm not doing this to my mother," I said. "I'm doing this to my tenants who haven't paid rent. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises. If you aren't gone, the police are already on standby to process the identity theft charges." I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what their faces looked like. It was the look of people who realized the ATM didn't just run out of money. It grew teeth. They were gone by noon the next day. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in New Jersey that they have to pay for themselves. Joshua is facing legal trouble for the forgery. I didn't press charges, but the bank wasn't as forgiving about the fraud. I am back in my apartment in Manhattan now. It is night. The city lights are blinking outside my floor-to-ceiling windows. I am sitting on my couch with a glass of wine. The room is perfectly silent. There is no TV blaring, no complaints, no requests for money. For a long time, I was afraid of this silence. People tell you that if you cut off your family, you will be lonely. They threaten you with the empty room. But as I sit here, looking at my clean, quiet life, I realize something. Silence isn't loneliness. It's a luxury product. It's expensive. You have to pay a high price for it. The price of guilt, the price of judgment, the price of letting go. But once you own it, it is the most beautiful thing in the world. I opened my phone. I went to my contacts. Dad, block. Mom, block. Joshua, block. I deleted the spreadsheet. I didn't need to track the debt anymore. The ledger was balanced. I learned that family is a title you earn, not a weapon you use. If you are holding on to toxic people just because you share a last name, Let this be your sign to let go. You are not a bank. You are not a rehabilitation center. You are a person, and you deserve to be free. If this story resonated with you, share it and hit follow for more stories about taking your power back.